The introduction to a film is often the most iconic part of the film. Think Indiana Jones, The Dark Knight, La La Land, Scream, and Gladiator. These movies grab the audience's attention, often with a spectacle. Look at the beginning of The Dark Knight. The beginning of The Dark Knight introduces us to the main antagonist, the Joker. It sets up the character's tone, showing his showmanship, intelligence, and twisted sense of humor, while fitting into Nolan's already established universe. During the sequence, you watch a bank heist, performed by the Joker's thugs. They each shoot each other to lower the amount of stolen money they have to split, as instructed by the Joker, just to reveal that the last thug was the Joker himself, which he reveals to the audience while putting a grenade in someone's mouth, which ends up being a smoke grenade, setting the tone for the Joker character for the rest of the film. The heist's over-the-top, precise nature perfectly reflects what Batman will go through against the Joker. Now let's look at Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The spectacle that is the opening sequence perfectly introduces us to the main character and what we are getting ourselves into. We watch Indiana Jones and his partner traverse a temple with over-the-top traps that puts the characters in peril. Indiana Jones is introduced to us as a fearless, skilled adventurer and proficient with his whip. He is intelligent with his trickery and clearly knows what he's doing, until his surroundings prove him wrong with their unconventional nature. The plot of the opening is clear, with them searching for an ultimate treasure. When they get to the treasure, the temple goes into lockdown, leaving the two to run out, which makes his partner turn on him, wanting the treasure for himself. This moment really shows who Indiana Jones is as a character. Like I said before, he is smart, he knows his surroundings, he is skilled with his craft, things that his partner is not, causing his death without Indy. If the introductions of these films were taken out, they would not affect the story of these movies. But then why would the directors put all the effort into these sequences? Although the opening doesn't affect the story, it is about the viewing experience. Imagine if the first time you saw Indiana Jones, he was a professor at college. Nobody would have taken him seriously the first time you saw him. In The Dark Knight, you would be left to wonder what Batman is going against for the first part of the movie. It's like a sample of what you're going to get for the rest of the film. The purpose of this project is to learn how the elements of film work together to create something special. Every decision is intentional, but they're to fulfill the vision of the director. I've always been interested in how movies were made. I used to watch the bonus features included in physical releases of movies. It was always cool to see the actors, directors, producers, and etc. talk about the different techniques they used to create the scenes to my favorite movies. The director's job is to show the audience something that they will remember. The director will use anything at their disposal to show the audience the story they want to convey creatively, or in an interesting way. Some of these elements include cinematography, audio, dialogue, color, and so much more. An example of a movie taking a spin on one of these elements is A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place is a film franchise where there are these creatures that hunt humans and have excellent hearing. Anyone that makes a loud sound ends up dead. With such a concept and keeping to the theme, A Quiet Place uses more modest, quieter music throughout the film. That way, when you hear something loud, you know when the characters are in danger. It creates a sense of unease. A Quiet Place uses jump scares in a rich way, because the sudden change in music when something goes wrong, the scare aspect is more effective and unique. One of the main characters, Reagan, is deaf. When the story follows her character, all the sound and music is replaced by a faint humming, in a way showing the audience what the characters have to go through to survive. Reagan's father tries to make a hearing aid for her, but it never works, showing no matter what the family does, they cannot get out of this situation. Another element directors use to fulfill their vision is the use of CGI or visual effects. Lots of Inception uses VFX because lots of those scenes would be impossible to make without it, such as the coffee shop scene when the road starts to blow up and contort on itself, to show that they were in a dreamlike reality. Another scene would be the hallway scene, only if it used visual effects. Most of it was practical. Christopher Nolan used similar technology found in 2001: A Space Odyssey. They both spun the entire set to get the dreamy zero-gravity effect. This scene stood out from the movie and is the most famous one. To create such a crazy effect, it took a crazy amount of money. Nolan could have just used CGI like many movies today would, but Nolan likes to keep things as practical as possible. practical effects look more real because they are. They aren't put in afterward. One of the best uses of practical effects used throughout the movie would be Gladiator. The entire time I was mesmerized and immersed in the movie just because everything looked so real. It made me think how much movies really use CGI these days. The only time CGI was used were for portions of the Colosseum, extras, and to create the German battlefields. Everything else was real or recreated with practical effects. From the tigers to the armor, from the set pieces to the fighting scenes, everything was authentic and it felt that way. The use of color in film dates back to the film The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. Although not the first movie to do it, I would say The Wizard of Oz revolutionized how color was used in movies. They even changed the color of Dorothy's shoes from silver to red to make them pop. Color in films wasn't very prevalent at that scale before, but they wanted to stand out. They wanted to stand out so much the movie starts out in black and white, but then changes the color when Dorothy enters the Land of Oz. They wanted to take advantage of the Technicolor technology that came out a couple years before, which uses red, green, and blue filters to give scenes color. The use of color in film has been a staple since the 1910s. Nearly every movie has used color because of how much it can affect the mood of a film. A movie that uses color creatively and came out recently is La La Land. La La Land uses color interestingly. If I told you what it meant to be colorful, you'd probably say the more colors, the more colorful, right? La La Land does the opposite. There are scenes that only feature a single color throughout. A lot of the time, when you see so many colors, they get lost in the shot. But when a scene is primarily one color, you can only see that color, making it stand out. The protagonist of a film is who the story follows. There's no wrong way to make a protagonist. I found Forrest Gump interesting. Throughout the movie, he doesn't change much. He does what he's told, he's after a girl, and meets many people as he grows up. Forrest as a character isn't much, but how he interacts with people around him is what stands out. Every side character in the film goes through a mini arc thanks to Forrest. Lieutenant Dan learns to see worth in himself after losing his legs in Vietnam. Jenny decides to ditch her drug-filled life and go to Forrest. Forrest is eternally innocent. He doesn't understand the wrong in the world around him, unlike all the side characters in the story. He teaches them to see the good in the world. He's going through his life like a feather in the wind. Whatever life throws at him, he just continues. In a way, the supporting cast is also a lot like Forrest. They are all just feathers in the wind, and Forrest just crossed paths with them. For every protagonist, there is an antagonist that tries to stop them throughout the story. Hans from Die Hard is a great example of how to make an excellent villain. Hans is interesting, because he isn't very animated in the traditional sense. He is calm, relaxed, and intimidating. Before we even see him, we see the chaos he brings. Then when he enters a scene, he emerges from his men, who had just finished firing their firearms into a crowd. He comes out smiling. His body language depicts him as confident and mellow. He walks around the room extracting information, with nothing but a stern stare, like a hawk eyeing its prey. The best way to describe Hans is lawful evil, in the sense he hurts all these people, but is calm about it. He tells the hostages that he had just killed one of their colleagues while eating a quick snack. When he sees someone as useless, he just kills them on the spot with no change in body language. His character would be so soulless if he was an over-the-top chaotic villain, but is incredible with Alan Rickman's genius approach. This was Alan Rickman's breakout role, and his performance kickstarted his career with how he made Hans, Hans. The end of the movie ties everything together. Movies like Inception, The Truman Show, Forrest Gump, Saving Private Ryan, Gladiator, Catch Me If You Can, and so much more. There are so many ways to end a movie, whether it be heroic and epic, somber or bittersweet. All good movies know how to end their story. For example, the aforementioned The Truman Show. The Truman Show is about a man named Truman Burbank, who is unknowingly the star of the biggest TV show the world has ever seen. His whole world has been fabricated around him and is purely populated by actors. Throughout the movie, he begins to see the unnatural appearance of his world and how he can never seem to leave. He wants to flourish and see the rest of the world, but everyone tells him that it's too dangerous or questions him for saying that because he has everything where he is right now. In the climax of the movie, under heavy paranoia, he tricks the producers, writers, and director into thinking that he is in bed, but then escapes into the set, entering a boat and overcomes his fear of the ocean, a fear that was manufactured by the writers when he was a young child. He is so dedicated to his dream of seeing the world that he even goes through a heavy storm that nearly kills him. When he reaches the end of the set, the director gives him a choice. He can stay here and live the rest of his life and be guaranteed a happy, safe, and sterile life, or he can leave the set and go on to live a life full of uncertainty, danger, and mystery. Truman wanted to see the world his whole life and decides to leave, leaving the rest of his story up to the audience interpretation. For once in his life, there is not a camera shoved in front of him. Another good example would be the war film, Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan's plot revolves around a small group of soldiers in World War II who go through some of the most gut-wrenching gunfights put to mainstream film, who are tasked to save the last surviving brother of 3, whose location is unknown, to get him back to his mom. The group struggles to grasp why they even bother with the task, and most of them end up getting killed, saving this mystery man's life. Not even Ryan understands why his life is considered more important than the others, and wants to stay and fight with the soldiers he was with because, in his words, they were his last remaining brothers. All the soldiers decide to stay and fight until backup comes to fight off the platoon of Nazi soldiers with the little resources they have. By the end of the battle, a fraction of the soldiers survive, and the main protagonist, Captain Miller, is killed. Then Ryan is sent back to his mom afterwards. There's a time skip where present-day Ryan pays his respects to Miller and all the other soldiers who died for him to be where he is now. Meant to show how today we should respect the people who had died for us, because if they didn't, we wouldn't be where we are now. Over the course of this project, I really learned to appreciate movies on another level. So much work goes into these films, with hundreds of people in the background working their butts off for our entertainment. Now when I watch movies, I watch them from several perspectives at different times. I can watch a movie from a more serious perspective, more casual perspective, or even a more artistic perspective, and form my own opinions on how the elements are handled. I just want to say thank you for watching. This was a very fun project to make, and I hope I have the opportunity to make something else like it in the future.